Kinilala ang husay at galing at talento ng mga kapatid nating Muslim at Moro sa ginanap na 13 Sultan Kudarat Awards kamakailan lamang sa lungsod ng General Santos. Nagtipon-tipon ng mga napiling nagpakitang gilas at bukod tangi sa iba't ibang larangang kanilang napili. Mula sa mga bata hanggang sa matatanda, nabigyan sila ng pagpupugay. Ang Sultan Kudarat Awards, isang uri ng pagbibigay kilala sa mga kapatid nating Muslim at Moro na naging huwaran sa kanilang mga larangan at naging magandang ehemplo sa iba. Dagdag pa dito na nakapagbigay sila ng pagbabago para sa ikauunlad ng ating komunidad.
Ito pong Sultan Kudarat Awards natin ay nabuo po noong 2003 sa Mindanao State University. Sa kadahilanan po na wala pa pong award-giving body na nagre-recognize po sa accomplishment ng mga young Moro professionals at student leaders natin. And noong 2003, starting 2003, ay part lang po siya ng Kabantugan Awards ng Mindanao State University kung saan student leader lamang po ang binibigyan ng award. Wala pa pong iba't ibang sector or iba't ibang field na nire-recognize. But right now, on its 13th year, nagkaroon na po tayo ng national award-giving body, itong 13th Sultan Kudarat Awards natin, kung saan pinaparangalan natin ang ating mga young professionals at student leaders na nag-i-excel sa iba't ibang larangan. Dahil yun nga po, worthy po sila ng mga awards na nagko-complement doon sa mga works nila sa ating community. Considering na ito sila, na-experience sila yung gulo, yung mga kahirapan na dinanas ng ating mga dala ng mga karahasang nangyari sa kasaysayan. Pero doon po, mapupulot po natin yung aral sa mga iba't ibang stories na mayroon sa buhay nila na sa kabila ng lahat, sa kabila ng kahirapan, kaguluhan, ay nagsusumikap sila upang itaas ang antas ng mga Bangsamoro upang tulungan ang mga community na ma-uplift ang level ng economy, ng health at iba't ibang programa na makakatulong sa ating mga Bangsamoro.
Pinangunahan ang nasabing programa sa pamamagitan ng paunang salita mula sa Bangsamoro Transition Commission Chairman na si Mohager Iqbal.
Well, clearly, our people is moving forward, and especially the young people. Before, you cannot see this kind of affair being undertaken by the young people, but this time, they are asserting their presence in the Bangsamoro society. So it's a good sign.
Naging kaabang-abang mga sumunod pang nangyari dahil isa-isa nang iginawad sa mga natatanging mga kapatid nating Muslim ang mga karangalan.
Ang parangalan po ito ay isang simbolo na kung saan magsisimbolong inspirasyon sa mga kabataang Moro na magkaroon sila ng commitment sa excellence. Na kung saan sa gabay ng Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, na kung saan ang mga Moro o Bangsamoro youth ay pwedeng mag-excel at may pakita na meron silang ipapakita sa ibang larangan.
So, assalamualaikum po sa lahat. So, it's really an honor to be a part of SPA. So, I dedicate this award to all the youth volunteers, especially to all to my co-peace advocates, especially. So, patuloy lang po tayong manindigan for us to achieve the genuine peace not only in Mindanao but throughout the country. Maraming salamat.
Itong award na po ito, sinadikit ko po sa aking pamilya, sa aking asawa, andyan po sa sina Pisa Mansag Jamalol, at sa mga natulungan ko pong mga tao, dinededicate ko po itong award. Ito lang masasabi ko po, masarap magtulong, lalo na po yung Bangsamoro people ng matulong. I'm proud to say I am Muslim and I am Bangsamoro.
Thank you, Sultan Kudarat Awards, for giving me this recognition, and this will inspire me to continue my advocacies, especially in education. I would like to share this to Young Moro Professionals Council, of course, Mindanao State University, General Santos City College of Education, to my students, and to the Bangsamoro youth.
First, it came to me as a surprise when I received an email. Tapos, ito pa talaga, umabot pa sa pagbibigay ng award. So, malaking pasalamat po talaga sa organizers ng 13th Sultan Kudarat Award. And we wish, or we pray, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will accept all our hard works and voluntary works, or our talents, whatsoever.
The award is just an affirmation that what we are doing in the community, particularly for the farmers, is right.
And this award also pushes me to find ways to still research more on how to make the farming as profitable as possible, to finally help our Bangsamoro farmers to get out of the cycle of poverty.
I'm not expecting this award, mashallah. One thing, to be part of the worker of the provincial government of Sarangani is a gift. And I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity to be given a chance to serve the Muslim Ummah and the general public in my own little way as a government employee.
Lagi ko nang in-emphasize that the Bangsamoro youth can, that we should be connected, or that we should connect, and we should be aware. Dapat po tayo may alam at pakialam, at yung pakikialam po natin ay nasa mapayapa at tamang pamamaraan. At dapat po, yung letter N, gawin na natin now na, ngayon na po.
Pantay-pantay lang po tayo. Itong award na ito, Sultan Kudarat Award. Wow, it's a great award. Pinapangarap ko yan. Sabi ko, sana bago lang ako minay, magawa ko lang yan. Kasi, for the information of everybody, yung award na yan, nakatatak dyan yung bravery, boldness, authenticity. Grabe, nandyan na lahat yung magagandang bagay. No? So, bilang Moro youth, young professionals, please do that good virtue of nandyan tayo sa daan ng Allah, and then we always an extra miler. Kaya natin yan. Pang world class ang Bangsamoro.
Para sa mga nagkamit ng karangalan, isa itong napakagandang pagkilala sa kanila para mahimok rin ang iba na gumawa ng mabuti.
Actually, it's an honor na maging bahagi po ng 13th Sultan Kudarat. Ang parangal po na ito ay malaking bahagi ng aking buhay bilang isang student leader na kung saan mas pagigihan ko pa po ang pagiging isang ehemplo or hulwaran para sa mga kabataang Bangsamoro at maging isa ring hopefully na maging isa sa mga magtataguyod ng Bangsamoro.
Really an honor po to be a part of SKA. So siguro po, I dedicate this award to all the youth volunteers, especially to my COPIS advocates. Patuloy lang po tayong manindigan para po mas ma-achieve pa po natin yung genuine peace, not only in Mindanao but throughout the country. So I'm so thankful po for this award. So sana po mas marami pa pong kabataan ang ma-inspire for this award.
Ang award na ito ay isa lamang na affirmation ng ating ginagawa sa community, particularly sa mga farmers na tinutulungan natin o ginagawa ng paraan paano maging profitable o paano sila kumita para naman matulungan sila na maalis sa cycle of poverty. Dahil kung titingnan ho natin ngayon, ang ating mga farmers ay isa sa mga napag-iiwanan. At kung farmers sila mga 10 years ago, kung titingnan natin ang status ng buhay nila, farmers pa rin at ganun pa rin ho sila. So kailangan talaga ng siguro mga researches or mga interventions para naman matulungan ang ating mga farmers. Ang award na ito ay nag-push pa sa atin na gumawa pa ng mga makabagong paraan para masabi natin na ang pag-farming ay hindi pwedeng iwanan ng mga kabataan, lalo na yung mga kabataang Bangsamoro, dahil ito ang backbone ng ating ekonomiya at kailangan natin gawa ng paraan para mahalin ang ating mga kabataan.
Alhamdulillah, ito pong award na to is actually hindi po to para sa amin lang po na Union of Muslim Youth Organizations. Kami po, ang advocacy namin is hindi po sa amin lang yung award, kundi para sa lahat ng mga Muslim. Ano po yung award na nakuha namin ngayon? Nagre-representa na ang mga Muslim dapat po mag-unity at maging brotherhood for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pure Islamically.
Napakasarap sa pakiramdam yung makatanggap ka ng award kasi this is a prestigious award given for Muslims, young professionals like me. As because of these awards, dadagdagan ko pa yung effort ko para maka-penetrate ako ng maganda doon sa karamihan, makapagbigay pa ng tarbiya, magandang tarbiya. Because as of now, I am the present Regional Salam in Police Regional Office 12. So marami pa akong pwedeng gawin, mga activities na makilala ang katangian ng isang tunay na Muslim na officer at may paabot kung ano ang pwedeng gawin ng isang tamang citizen.
Glad po ako na napili po akong maging recipient ng Youth Achiever Award kasi para sa akin po ito po totoong honor po to para sa akin. Tsaka para mabigyan ko rin po ng honor ang family.
Ilan lamang sila sa ating mga kabrigada na nagsasabing tayo maging huwaran. Tayo gumawa ng mabuti at sa ating mga sarili, nagsisimula ang tunay na pagbabago. Ito ang isang patunay mga kabrigada na lahat tayo may magagawa. Na lahat tayo may kakayahan na maging mabuting ehemplo at may kakayahan na mamuno para sa ikauunlad ng ating komunidad. Mula po sa buong Brigada Group of Companies, naniniwala po kami sa kakayahan at kaya pang gawin ng bawat individual saan mang panig ng mundo. Ito po muli si Johanna Arrexia Kilinderino para sa Hataw sa Diskarte.
Hopes pinned on the Bangsamoro Basic Law to end the historical grievances in Mindanao, one of the world's longest conflicts. The new measure comes at a time the nation is reminded of the costs of delayed efforts towards peace in the region. President Duterte gave his assurance the proposed legislation is still a priority. Sporadic firefights still hound Maguindanao, displacing families and destroying livelihood. For Lumbayan, a mother of 10, living in a tent like this is a norm.
Palagi kami nakalipad dito. Backpack ng sundalo. Mahirap talaga kasi yung mga bata nagalagnat pa sila.
Over 180,000 people have been internally displaced in the ARMM from 2013 to 2015. This is due to armed conflict, terror attacks, and family feud. Lumbayan fears living here, but she takes the risk anyway because her family has nowhere else to go.
Gusto namin yung matigil lang yung gulo kasi para kami sa bahay namin. Pagod kami sa ganito
It can be argued there can be no peace when one has no place to call home. The BBL is seen as a final step to enable the Moros to live in true autonomy. Data reveal the impact of the war in Mindanao has been vicious and costly. Economic losses so far have amounted to 640 billion pesos, while the conflict has claimed nearly 120,000 lives. But for a family like Mustafa's, fear of a potentially deadly future is slowly gunned down by the pressing needs of the present. More than half of the people in the ARMM are poor.
Palaging hindi kakasyahin. Gusto namin ay may tigil na yung mga ganitong pangyayari, mag-evacuate, matigil na ang gulo. Gusto namin peace process lang para hindi kami maka-evacuate na.
But the Bangsamoro agreements are not all about fair share of revenues and channeling more funds to the region. Another issue is the lack of medical practitioners. Muslim Mindanao residents also suffer from dismal access to health services. Basic education lies at the heart of development, but in some areas, there are classes with no teachers. Schools fare poorly in national achievement tests, and on top of that, lack of good governance. Achieving lasting peace in Mindanao is never an easy task, and until this is a reality for the region, the Bangsamoro people will need to remain resilient and hopeful, their usual recourse all these years.
With us, our Undersecretary Nabil Tan. He's the Deputy Presidential Advisor on the peace process. He also is the acting chair of the GPH Implementing Panel. Also with us is Mohager Iqbal, who chairs the Implementing Panel of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Undersecretary Manuel Bautista is the Executive Director of the Cabinet Cluster on Security, Justice and Peace, and former Congresswoman Siti Dalia Hataman of the party list Anak Mindanao. Good morning. Very basic question. Why is this very, very important to the Bangsamoro?
Well, it is a formula for peace and development and progress in Mindanao. It will address the historic injustice committed against the Moro people. Of course, it's not a cure-all formula, We do not expect that when the BBL passes Congress, then everything will be settled overnight. It has to, the people, especially the leaders, will have to exert more and more efforts to overcome all the challenges ahead of us.
The establishment of the Bangsamoro will afford the opportunity, an avenue to give the Moros the political structure that is more reflective of their aspirations. It is an improvement from the present ARMM because it is being granted with more powers. And it will help improve local governance. It will help alleviate this human security index on poverty and life expectancy, which is below the normal national average.
One of the reasons that we need to look at is that what binds us together as a Moro people is, of course, the right to self-determination. That's the struggle. Many of my generation, born in the 70s, we haven't really experienced the other historical injustices, but we were told about it. And we were told about the struggle. That was what was passed on to us.
There are also remnants of that
yes,
historical
the
injustice.
very remnants, and the others we also experienced. So I think the struggle for right to self-determination is what binds us across ethno-linguistic groups, across generations, and it is the Bangsamoro Basic Law is right now the answer to the struggle. So that would also follow having, trying to get out of poverty, addressing all the other social issues that we need to address.
This is our second crack at having the Bangsamoro Basic Law passed. And I'd like to get an insight on the attitude of the MILF this time. Do you think it really has a better chance of getting passed under the present dispensation?
We are very hopeful that the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law will make it through Congress, banking on the promises of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, starting from the time he was campaigning for the presidency up to the time he was already elected as president of this republic, and up to today. The last time we met him, and he repeatedly said that what I have committed to you, I will fulfill it. And he said that he had already talked to the Speaker of the House, Senate President, about the passage of the BBL.
In short, this is not the end all and be all. Now I'd like to go to Undersecretary Nabil Tan. The President, through his allies, controls the supermajority at the lower house. The BBL shouldn't face a lot of challenges at the lower house, at least, because of that political clout. But it took a while before the BBL draft prepared by the BTC, the latest one, 2017 version, was accommodated by authors. What does this particular scenario communicate to us?
It was done by the BTC on time. There was no author yet at the time because it was in transition to the House. So as soon as they got it, the House was readily, went into work. The LEDAC just recently approved the filing of the bill, and indeed it has been filed, authored by more than 100 members of Congress. That goes to show there is so much interest and emphasizes the urgency of the passage of this piece of legislation. Very important.
Now let's go to recently, she was still a member of Congress of the lower house just recently. Now you resigned. During that privileged speech that you delivered, yes, you made one final appeal for the passage of the BBL. Do you think there's still a lot of resistance now from your colleagues as far as getting this passed once and for all?
Well, having more than 100 authors of the BBL BTC now, I think that's a very good sign. And yes, I was also considering the fact that I'm one vote less, but we are a supermajority. I was part of the supermajority, and before leaving, I got to talk with Majority Floor Leader Fariñas and Speaker Alvarez, and I also got the assurance from them that they will be pushing this.
For Mr. Iqbal, what are the thoughts or sentiments of, especially of young Muslims now, given what's happening in Marawi City, given the threat of violent extremism, and of course, somehow the frustration that we're still waiting for the BBL at this time? Is there really frustration on the part of a lot of young Muslims now?
The reality is that there is a lot of frustration among the youth. Not just among the youth, but even among old people. The crisis in Marawi has a component of frustration. Nobody is a winner in Marawi City. Not even the government is a winner. Not even the Maranos are a winner. Not even the MLF. Everybody is a loser in Marawi City. And we just hope that the BBL will pass Congress, because the BBL is an antidote to the rising violent extremism and rising violent fundamentalism.
Terrorism, the terrorists that are able to radicalize some of our people by capitalizing on issues, whether real or perceived. And by capitalizing on those issues, they're able to recruit more into their ranks. And therefore, while the BBL is not a cure-all, as Chairman Iqbal here said, but it sets the political framework for us to be able to address these core issues that are being used to radicalize some of our people to join terrorist groups.
Let's talk about the missed opportunities from the security perspective. What are the things that happened, which should not have happened, if we were only successful in putting in place this BBL and the Bangsamoro government?
It has cost a lot of lives, not just among the protagonists, but also those caught in the middle. As we have seen earlier, well, we're talking about 120,000 lives lost. What about their families and the missed opportunity in terms of development? And also, there are other issues that we need to address, to focus on. And I'm referring to other security issues like climate change and defending our territory, addressing terrorism.
How about the imposition of martial law? There's martial law now in Mindanao. Yusek Bautista, do you think this is affecting the drive to gather more support for the BBL, for the entire Bangsamoro peace process?
It's while it facilitates government's ability to address the immediate threat in Marawi, it is also not a cure-all for the issue of terrorism and dissent in Mindanao. It's a temporary cure to address a specific issue on the violence.
It's another related situation here for Undersecretary Nabiltan. How does the move toward a Bangsamoro government to have the BBL pass figure in the overall federalism formula?
Well, I guess the establishment or the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law by Congress and ratification by the people affected will help pave the way for the Bangsamoro to prepare for the upcoming shift to a federal from a unitary form of government. This will be also an opportunity for the Bangsamoro to come out with their own unique features in terms of incorporating the Bangsamoro political entity into the federal, soon-to-be established federal states.
That's one option, right? You put the Bangsamoro territory, the government, in place first before you move to federalism. But do we have time for that?
We have a definitive timeline which, if complied with, will really overtake even the massive effort or the efforts to shift to federal. We see the timeline of the end of the year to be passed by Congress or the first quarter of next year. I see federalism moves to amend the Constitution will take a longer time than 1 year or 1.5 years. So I foresee that the BBL can be, or the Bangsamoro political entity can be established ahead of a shift to the federalism.
That would be good news, but pardon me for asking this. What if the other option happens, Mr. Iqbal, that the Bangsamoro, the BBL, is implemented, is enacted in the context of the bigger federalism shift? Would that be acceptable to the MILF?
Well, on the part of the MILF, we are not imagining any other scenario. What we are imagining is that in terms of sequence, the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law should be passed ahead of the shift of the system of government from unitary to federal system.
Okay, Undersecretary Nabiltan.
Yes, I agree with Chairman Iqbal. The President will be appointing a couple of Bangsamoro professionals into that proposed 25 constitutional commission that will draft the constitutional amendments or revision for the shift to federalism. And the purpose of that is to be able to preserve the distinct identity of the future Bangsamoro state within the context of a federal government.
You're referring to the 25-person
Yes, I am referring
committee.
to that, yes.
But we're still waiting for the President's announcement who the members will be.
They're completing that already.
My colleague Alexis Schultz is monitoring the conversations online. What do you have there?
All right, Christian, well, here's some comments from Facebook. Bint Aisha Lagantao says that the immediate implementation of the political negotiated settlement between government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front will address all conflicts in Mindanao. Meanwhile, Philip Belengel believes that more jobs, education, and beefing up the region's security will bring peace to Mindanao. And on Twitter, Abubakar Masukat asserts that the conflict between the government and the MILF will be resolved once the Bangsamoro Transition Commission version of the BBL is signed into law. Christian, back to you.
Up next, we will discuss key points about the peace process and where it stands now. Stay with us. This ANC presents Bangsamoro and Beyond, a national conversation.
What can I get for 10 centavos?
Joke ba to?
What can I get for 10 centavos?
Security?
What can I get for 10 centavos?
Here's what you'll get. My HP ink tank gives me 3 things. Great volume, spill-free refill system, and brilliant-looking prints.
Eiffel Tower?
Pero printout lang. Reinvent the value of 10 centavos.
My days as a TV presenter are numbered. I've become expendable. This is the Kodomoroid, the world's first newscaster robot.
Can you feel that?
No, I don't like to be poked like that.
How are you? I'm awesome. Will robots ultimately become our friends, even intimate companions? That appears to be the next big idea.
I'm in favor. For the thing is, for the past how many years, kasi 80s ako eh. So, way back then, hindi pa rin maayos. But the thing is, itong Bangsamoro may be a chance for the government to reach out sa Mindanao para magkaroon naman ng peace sa buong Mindanao. Hindi lang dito sa Manila.
My request only, I am not favor, I am favor, but provided that the right of indigenous peoples will be included in that law. And to give us our distinct identity as a Romana na Manuvo, and particularly within the core area, which is the Taduray, Lambangian, to be recognized for themselves.
If you look at the problems that we had in Mindanao, most of the conflicts has been recurring. If we look at the recent events that we had, it is a sufficient indicator that the BBL is not just necessary, but indispensable.
A new and improved draft Bangsamoro Basic Law has been certified as urgent by President Rodrigo Duterte. The BBL will implement the 2014 peace agreement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. But what exactly are the features of this new BBL? If passed into law, this will create a new territory and government for the Bangsamoro in Mindanao. This new territory will take the place of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, or the ARMM. The core territory will also include Cotabato City, Isabela City, and 6 towns in Lanao del Norte. It will also cover all other barangays in 6 other towns that voted to be included in the ARMM during a plebiscite 16 years ago. Unlike in the 2014 draft, the new BBL limits plebiscites for expansion to every 5 years. After 25 years, the Bangsamoro territory shall be considered delineated and delimited. A Bangsamoro Transition Authority, or BTA, led by the MILF, will serve as an interim government. Other sectors such as women and non-Moro indigenous communities will be among its 80 members. Part of the BTA's job is to come up with legal codes. It will have a ministerial government led by a chief minister whose job is to appoint 2 deputies aside from members of the cabinet. The Bangsamoro will also have a ceremonial head called Wali, appointed from a list of eminent residents of the Bangsamoro. The Bangsamoro Parliament will now have 80 members from only 60 in the 2014 BBL. Seats will also be available for women, youth, traditional leaders, and the ulama. On revenues, the Bangsamoro will get 75% of taxes, fees, and charges collected by the central government there. The rest will go to the central government. The annual block grant for the Bangsamoro was increased from 4% to 6%. This will represent the Bangsamoro's share in the national internal revenue. Public order and safety will be the primary responsibility of the Bangsamoro government. The Bangsamoro will have its own police, but the BBL makes it clear this shall be part of the Philippine National Police and free from partisan political control. Improvements indeed have been made to make the new draft BBL more palatable and acceptable, especially to members of Congress who need to be convinced. The BBL deserves a second chance.
With us are House Deputy Speaker Bai Sandra Semak, Commissioner Jose Lorena of the Bangsamoro Transition Commission, Attorney Raisa Jajuri, and still with us is Mr. Mohager Iqbal, who chairs the MILF Implementing Panel. Now, there was this perspective mentioned in that particular report, whether this indeed is now more palatable, this version of the BBL. Is that really the case? You worked on this for so long. What are the improvements that you actually included which should now make it more palatable? Mr. Lorena.
We as lawyers and members of the panel of the government understand that there are constitutional limitations and we have to address all those. The most important provisions there is we have addressed therefore the concerns of many of Congress, and we are also guided by the opinions of many constitutionalists that have raised certain issues during the last Bangsamoro Basic Law. And the improvement is we have addressed that, and we have also addressed the problem of inclusivity because the MNLF is now part of the BTC. And the 2 agreements, the 1996 final agreement, which was addressed during the tripartite review, and their concerns have already been accommodated in the new BBL. In fine, the BBL is already the articulation of the Bangsamoro interest as reflected by the articulation of the 2 Moro fronts, including the other people of the Bangsamoro.
But if that's the case, how come Nur Miswari decided to go to the track of federalism and did not anymore submit his proposed improvements to the existing law that governs the ARMM? Attorney Raisa.
Well, I think that choice to move towards the federalism project also works well with the 2 processes, because now you have only 1 draft that will be submitted to Congress. All the concerns of the MNLF were also brought into the deliberations of the BTC and are incorporated in the BBL. So you have 2 tracks, one on the legislation, and then of course Professor Miswari chose to do the other track.
Attorney Lorena.
There are the tripartite review, which the group of Chairman Miswari was involved. There were 3 remaining issues which has to be considered. This is the issue on the plebiscite for the expansion of territory that is covered by the Tripoli Agreement. If you will note in the new BBL, there is a delimitation already. That's one. On the matter of the definition of strategic minerals, which was used by the group of Chairman Miswari, this is also addressed. because the matter of strategic defense were now technically defined by including that all mines and minerals are for the Bangsamoro except the fossil fuels, thus deviating from the old formula of classifying the metallic from non-metallic. This is also an MNLF imported provision which was incorporated into the BBL.
Now let's get the perspective of a member of Congress, the lower house, Deputy Speaker Bangsamoro. We've been hearing about this so-called game plan. We've heard this before during the previous administration. That given the so-called constitutional questions on certain provisions of the BBL version 2014 and 2017, it would be better to implement it initially based on the provisions that are not questionable and wait till we go to charter change and later on federalism to address those so-called constitutional issues or impediments. What's your view on that?
Actually, there is no game plan. We don't have that as before. As to the possibility of the questions that may arise out of provisions that may be constitutionally challenged, there is actually some form of talks with the MILF, the BTC, and the Office of the Speaker to study this one. And if there are really other provisions that may need to be, that we may need a constitutional revision in order to accommodate that, just so BBL will pass, then that is open also for a possible consensus.
You mentioned consensus. I'd like to ask Mr. Iqbal, given the realities in Congress, given your experience in 2014 and 2015, let's not talk about anymore about the Mama Sapano incident. Do you honestly think that this version of the BBL will be passed, more or less the same, without getting diluted drastically?
Well, ideally, the MLF wants the version of the BBL which was just crafted by the Bangsamoro Transition Commission. But we also understand that Congress has that plenary power over legislation. But the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law is not an ordinary legislation. It should be seen and regarded as a legislated agreement. So we just hope and pray that Congress would really try to look at the Constitution in its flexibility, because the problem in Mindanao is not a legal problem, it's a political problem that would require a political solution. And according to some lawyers, the Constitution is not a legal document, it's a political document.
So basically, this version of the BBL can be implemented given the present system of government and existing constitution that we have?
We are very, very sure about that. Even during the previous BTC, we have so many lawyers, and we have so many brilliant lawyers. And even during the time when we were negotiating the FAB and the CAB, on the side of the government, they have so many brilliant lawyers, including the current Justice of the Supreme Court, Marvic Leonin. On our side, we also have so many lawyers. And when we deliberated the first BBL by the first BTC, we have so many lawyers. And we were so sure that what we have crafted is that it will pass the constitutional challenge. That's why during my inconvention as chairman of the BTC, we never proposed any list of amendments to the Constitution, because our belief is that the whole BBL that we transmitted to the office of the President and finally to Congress is constitutional. And this can be backed up by the opinion of the 18 surviving members of the framers of the Constitution, that they say that the BBL is constitutional because it is about social justice.
Okay. Unfortunately, the other side or the oppositors also have a lot of lawyers that also has that option to question this later on before the Supreme Court. Now let's go to the details of the so-called questionable provisions of the BBL. Let's try to explain this, especially to the general public, the concept of asymmetrical relationship between the national government or the central government and the Bangsamoro government. Attorney Raisa.
Well, it basically means that given the history of the Bangsamoro, given the struggle, given the peace agreement, we envision a Bangsamoro political entity that may have powers which will not be enjoyed by the other regions. Precisely, this is going to be an autonomous region, and therefore it's not at the same level as administrative regions.
So what do you tell the others who claim that you cannot come up with this arrangement under the present system that we have now? Attorney Joe.
We have looked into these issues that you have raised, and we have also reviewed the Constitution. Very clearly, many of the provisions which they have raised have been relanguaged or reformulated to accommodate the language of the Constitution. We have, in a way, reflected some of the intent of the premise of the Constitution into the language of the new Bangsamoro Transition Commission.
How about the manner of plebiscite for a nearby area to be part of the Bangsamoro territory?
That's correct. I think the issue there was treating arms as a political unit. If you look into the plebiscite of the FAS, the result of the plebiscite is counted on the plurality of votes of one political unit. For example, the vote of the municipality will not count if the majority of the votes of the province is for it. Similarly, ARM has been organized already into a political unit. So in order that there will be symmetry in all the recognition of the result of the plebiscite, then you should take ARM as a political unit, not individual provinces as independent. This is corollary to the provinces. You take the municipality not a separate political unit, but as part of the province as a whole.
For Deputy Speaker Bangsamoro, of course, during the previous administration, one of the most serious issues hurled against the BBL is the so-called creeping provision. Now, you mentioned the delimitation provision is now in place. Will that be acceptable to certain colleagues of yours, perhaps, who might still have that particular concern?
Before I answer that, Christian, the talks is always on the technical side of the law. What I would like to ask is that, are we not enacting a BBL to solve a problem? To stop the decades of war? To empower people? Why are we delimiting ourselves? Because if we are really serious in addressing this problem, a law should be enacted in order to finally solve it.
The problem is they also have to go into the details of the law, unfortunately, even if that is the overriding intention of this entire exercise.
Then we really have a problem here.
So what do you think of that particular concern? Before there was this issue of creeping provision. I think it's very much addressed now.
I think the idea of the BTC in that provision is that these are giving hope to the Muslim people or the Moro people outside the area of autonomy, that they will not say they are already forgotten, that there is a chance for them to be reconnected. But they are given 5 times for 5 years. And I think it will not be possible for them to come in because the areas where they are majority non-Moros. This is actually just taking into consideration what the other Moro residing outside the area of autonomy would feel.
So what do you think would be a better track?
I think we should look at the issue as not creeping into the territory of other neighboring LGUs. But this is one way of addressing the historical injustice. The Bangsamoro were majority in many of these areas, but because of state-sponsored migration and other policies of government, we have become minoritized. And if you use the same criteria for creating an autonomous region, that is in the mindset of many people that it should be at the province level or city level, then you will not have any resolution to that grievance that we should be part of one political entity and that we should be given that chance to join it.
Attorney Lorena.
First, I'll base my answer on law and constitution. Constitution and law are not static, they're dynamic. And they're prospective. And therefore, you should provide already an opportunity for interest articulation to be captured in the law so that people will not take it differently. Constitution should allow already a provisions that will accommodate future events.
Unfortunately, we also need to go into more details now because we're talking here of the 2017 BBL. Mr. Iqbal, what was the basic idea behind the decision to increase the share of the Bangsamoro in the national revenue from 4% to 6%? And how much are we talking about here?
The reason is very simple because, you know, the areas of the Moros are practically devastated. And according to the United Nations research, is that it would take 20 years to reconstruct a devastated country or area. Like Marawi City, it cannot be rehabilitated just for 5 years, 10 years. It would require more years to rehabilitate Marawi City. And the other reason is that according to census, about 5% of the population in the Philippines are Moros, and that is approximately around 7 to 8 million. So because we are 8 million or maybe 7 million, the modest estimate, then we are entitled to more percentage of the total net collection of the internal revenue collections in the Philippines.
In short, this is something that the Bangsamoro deserves. Attorney Joe.
I'm a member of the government panel during the power sharing, where this issue of black lands was raised also. In Republic Act 1954, there is already a general provision which says that the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao will have its equitable share from national revenue. But this equitable share from the approval of the law until the current law has not been defined. So no budget has been released based on that particular provision of the law. That is why in the context of the BBL now, we put it forward already, how it will be computed so that it will be then left to the Congress of the Philippines to define it.
I have a follow-up question on that, but Lexi Schultz is still monitoring the conversations online. Let's go to Lexi.
All right, thank you very much for that, Christian. Here's some of the comments that we're seeing on Facebook first. Ashraf Hashemi Muhammad says that the only real solution for lasting peace in Mindanao is by way of Muslims to be real Muslims. Kujaima Maranda Mangate believes that genuine community engagement is the solution to the conflict in Mindanao. Zai Buisan is urging the government to pass and implement the BBL, which she believes is the only viable tool to address all forms of conflict in the Bangsamoro. And over on Twitter now, Mahmoud Mending Jr. says that the BBL is not the key, but he believes it's a necessary ingredient to attain just and lasting peace in Mindanao. Christian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lexi. Now, before we move to before we go on break, I'd like to ask another follow-up question on that. You mentioned the increase of the annual block grant. Of course, perhaps some people might be asking, how do you protect this particular amount from leakage? How does the BBL, given the structure of government and the protective mechanisms included in that particular proposed law, would address that concern?
Well, the Bangsamoro Parliament is mandated, will have the responsibility of apportioning the budget for the different agencies and the different programs that it will have to implement. So it's going to be a block grant, but within the Bangsamoro, there will be a process for budgeting this specific amount. So it's not going to be pocketed by an individual. It will go through the usual government processes of budgeting and accountability.
Okay, Attorney Joe.
First, as already mentioned, it will be a subject to Parliament approval for its disposition. Second, this is already related to the internal audit process that we want before even the post-audit system can come, so that the dispensation of funds would already be subject to a first pre-audit before even COA can come for a post-audit. Accountability was put in also in these provisions of the BBL to protect the funds that will come to the Bangsamoro Bangsamoro.
Okay. For the next gap, we'll be talking about certain misconceptions about the BBL, certain fake news even during the previous administration. We'll get back after a break. You're still watching ANC Presents Bangsamoro and Beyond, a national conversation.
Hair problems? Transform it. All-new Cream Silk Customized Solutions with advanced hair reborn technology. Make your hair lively straight, resiliently strong, and irresistibly smooth. All-new Cream Silk.
Uy, bago! Sa new Surf Purple Blooms, magbabago mundo mo. Sa nakakakilig na bango. Blooming sa bango ng lily at orchid perfumes, ang Surf Purple Blooms. New Surf Purple Blooms, 5 pesos lang.
New Dove Ultimate White is now better than ever. It's the first dia with both vitamin B3 and 1/4 moisturizing cream. Proven to lighten stubborn dark spots from within. For ultimately beautiful underarms. New Dove Ultimate White.
Hair problems? Transform it. All-new Cream Silk Customized Solutions with advanced hair reborn technology. Make your hair lively straight, resiliently strong, and irresistibly smooth. All-new Cream Silk.
I'm going to be a big-time baker! I'm gonna be a successful banker, helping the biggest number of people, baking the biggest treats, and winning the biggest race of all.
Are we ready to work, Misters and Miss?
Your kids have big dreams. Help them to dream bigger here.
Ready, Miss?
Ready!
Zania Manila turns terrific too. Dream bigger.
I'm in favor po kasi dapat kasi mas napoprotektahan yung ARMM natin, yung area nun. Yun kasi mas makakatulong yun para mas yung security ng place is mas maging mahigpit. Tsaka yung mga tao dun is less yung takot dun sa lugar.
For me, hindi ako favor dun sa law na yun. Kasi I believe na dapat sumusunod tayo sa rules talaga ng government natin.
Yes, I said that I hope the BBL would pass Congress. I said that I will husband it, and I'm trying to convince everybody that it is for our own national interest that we start changing the unitary type into a federal type, and that's being asked by the Visayas and Mindanao for the longest time. An equal sharing of the wealth of the nation, the taxes and all.
Last but not the least, we have to concentrate our efforts in passing 2 legislative measures that hold the key to lasting peace and prosperity for our country. First, the Bangsamoro Basic Law draft has been submitted to the President and will soon be on its way into our chamber. This will be the basis for creating a homeland for our Bangsamoro brothers and sisters.
Now that the two fronts have come together, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, the Moro National Liberation Front, now is the chance to put this war behind us and go for making this Philippines a very strong nation. The BBL is there. The MILF, the MNLF will be able to encourage their brothers or those that are misled to come and be part of this genuine autonomy where everybody can work together.
It's our best chance not only to rectify the past, but equally to combat, I think, something that we're seeing as violent extremism across all of Southeast Asia.
The BBL should be seen not just a autonomy or division of power, resources, economic opportunities, but more on a social justice instrument, a human development instrument that seeks to introduce to the people that there is really a hope, there is a new beginning that can be partaken by all people in Mindanao.
To complete the process of solving the Bangsamoro problem requires the healing process. We need to put closure to the problem.
Welcome back. You're still watching Bangsamoro and Beyond, a national conversation. Now, joining us in this panel is ARMM Executive Secretary Liza Alamia. Baikon Makaraya, a peace advocate from Marawi, is also the National Program Officer at the World Food Program. Attorney Cecilia Jimenez, she consults with the Office of the Presidential Advisor in the peace process, helping out on the Transitional Justice Roadmap. And Archbishop Antonio Ledesma, the Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro. Thank you very much for joining us. How do you explain to the common people why the nation here is a stakeholder and this is not just about Mindanao?
For me, the settlement is not only a political settlement, but it should also be a settlement among religious communities, because both Christianity and Islam are religions of peace, and we have to work at that level, grassroots communities, understanding our own religious traditions, whether Muslim or Christian.
I'd like to go to Attorney Liza Alamia. A lot of comments regarding the ARMM. Of course, the ARMM will be supplanted by the new Bangsamoro territory once the BBL is enacted. Let's address this very basic question, usually thrown against the ARMM, that it is a failed experiment.
That has been used by the previous administration to describe the ARMM. A lot of people are saying that we shouldn't call it an experiment. It was a solution that was put forward by the previous administrations and in the previous peace process that didn't work. Why is it not working? There are several structural problems within the ARMM as a result of the provisions of RA 9054 that we think would be filled up and can be revised and improved if we have a Bangsamoro basic law. We are ARMM, but we support the passage of the BBL. We support the demise of the ARMM so that the Bangsamoro can come in. There's a saying in Tagalog, ang sakit sa kalingkingan ay sakit ng katawan. The Mindanao, the ARMM, the Bangsamoro is part of the Philippines. Anything that is painful in any part of the Philippines becomes painful in the whole Philippines. ARMM is the poorest region in the country. Because of the conflict that is happening, no matter how much we're going to pour in when it comes to development funds, this will not redound to the benefit of the people of the ARMM and even the people of the entire country, because the conflict is still there.
In short, whether the person living in Metro Manila or the Visayas like it or not, they will be affected. They are affected by what's happening in Mindanao.
Yes.
I'd like to address this next question to Bai and Attorney Sedge. Basically, do you feel with what happened in 2014 that the public sentiment on the ground has improved somehow? Like there's more acceptance now, less misunderstanding, misconceptions about the BBL?
Probably not directly on the BBL. Looking at the situation, the recurrence of conflict will contribute somehow, will attribute to the deprivation of the people of what are the basic services that should be there. And not only that, but that will make them even more vulnerable. If this will be attributed to the loss of productivity, to the health cost, and even to the education, that will somehow link to the issues about our children in Manila and other areas. Because for every resources that is poured, that is
wasted,
given and wasted in conflicts, that would mean getting it from the development efforts that should have been done in other parts of the country.
And incidentally, this particular issue is not talked about that much, especially in Metro Manila. I'd like to go to Attorney Sedge. You work for the Transitional Justice and Reconciliation Commission. Let's talk about specific recommendations by this body to be able to address the healing requirements of people who have been affected for so many years by the conflict in parts of Mindanao.
Among our recommendations are really recommendations addressed to civil society and government agencies as well as to the Bangsamoro people with regard to how transitional justice measures can be incorporated by an all of government and all of society approach. And this is very important because we don't see that transitional justice can only be done by the Bangsamoro. It has to be a national endeavor. Our recommendations actually cover two sets. One recommendation is the setting up of a national transitional justice and reconciliation board or entity for the Bangsamoro. And the other set of recommendations are specific recommendations, over 90 in fact, that are addressed to the different stakeholders.
Now, speaking of historical injustices done against the Bangsamoro, of course, there are also historical injustices done against the indigenous peoples, the Lumads. How do they figure in this entire BBL equation? How will this benefit them? Bishop Ledesma.
Yes, in fact, that is one role now, I think, of religious communities also, to focus on a more inclusive history of Mindanao. And lately, the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines has come out with a project on that, simply through infographics with use of pictures and captions to show a more inclusive history, including the significant events affecting both the Muslim and the indigenous people communities. Together with that is also the need for intra-religious dialogue, that even among Christians ourselves, there are some biases that we have to process.
You mentioned biases within the Christian community. I'm not sure whether you're talking of Catholics or other Christian denominations. Can you elaborate on this? What are these biases against the Bangsamoro?
Well, this has been an accumulation also of decades of misunderstanding and perceptions. And when I was in Ipil as bishop, and even now in Cagayan de Oro and Northern Mindanao, sometimes you still hear maybe people who are not familiar or very close to Muslim communities, they have stereotype images of maybe the Muslims. We had a Culture of Peace seminar once in Ipil where we had the 3 groups represented, and they did admit that for some, they would say that these are my stereotype image. For Christians, they are land grabbers. For IPs, they are not too well educated. For Muslims, that they cannot be trusted in front of maybe civil society, but these are all stereotype images.
Now, for Attorney Liza, let's talk about how the BBL, how this entire peace process, when completed, I'm not saying if, when completed, would benefit the women, especially those in Mindanao.
For women, there will be less issues on gender-based violence. We will be able to focus on issues that have not been discussed before, that affect women, that are taboo topics. If the BBL would be passed, if we have peace in Mindanao, but I have to make a caveat on that. The BBL, passage of the BBL does not mean that all of these problems will be resolved. We have a problem on terrorism, on violent extremism that is coming in now with the happening in what has happened in Marawi. It's something that we have to look into.
You mentioned the lure of violent extremists in Mindanao. In the meantime, that the BBL is still under deliberation, what efforts are you guys doing, for example, to make sure that they are kept out of harm's way, so that they won't be lured by these violent extremists?
Perception is very, very important. If the people can see that they have a government that they can run to, and they can see that the services are being delivered to them, and all of their rights are being respected, the poverty incidence level has gone down, then people wouldn't be enticed to join these groups, the violent extremist groups. But it's not as simple as that also. There has to be a comprehensive multidimensional approach on violent extremism and terrorism. And what we're doing now is working with religious leaders, not just the Muslim religious leaders, but also the Christian, the Catholic religious leaders, the youth, and the local government units in trying to stop the transfer of the youth, especially the youth, from where they are now into joining these groups that are violent.
It is important, for instance, to look into the situation, like in responding to these emergencies, to look at it as not as business as usual, that we need to look at or consider conflict sensitivity in terms of how do we respond to it.
And of course, people can also exploit these situations.
Exactly.
For example, this emerging frustration and resentment by these people who are not getting basic services from their government. You'd like to say something, Attorney Sej?
In terms of breaking the cycle of displacement, we actually try to implement, again, as a transitional justice measure, but also social and economic, the durable solutions for internally displaced persons. These are social components that not only look at reconstruction, which is right now the main emphasis, but we need to look at how people can move on, how they will return, and how they will go back to normal lives.
Okay, a lot of people are monitoring this conversation, this forum on social media. Let's go to Lexi to see what these comments are. Lexi.
All right, Christian, thank you. Let's read some of the comments from Facebook users on whether the Bangsamoro will bring lasting peace and prosperity in the region. Siti Hamara believes that the passage of the new BBL is the main key to attaining lasting peace in Mindanao. She adds that many lives have been sacrificed and it's time to end conflicts in the region. Ahmed Pangato says that the enactment of the BBL will correct historical injustices to the Bangsamoro people. Norhata Dumasil asks Filipinos to listen to long-time issues of the people in Mindanao. And finally, Rahib Hussein Talembo Dukay Kamen says that non-Muslims should understand the story of the Bangsamoro people. And we also have an audience member who'd like to ask a question. This is Mr. Peter Perfecto. He's the Executive Director of the Makati Business Club. Sir, go ahead.
We have been asking for the government to move forward on the BBL. We have made statements before together with the Mindanao Business Council, stressing how very important this is, and even expressing concern that Congress seems to be a little distracted from this priority. This is the priority of Congress. Possibly not all the impeachments and all the investigations. I think this should come first. This is very important. The business sector is ready. We're waiting. Once it's passed, you know, what's going on in Marawi, we've actually been, we're behind the soldiers there, helping them. And it's symbolic of us just waiting for the opportunity for when we can start building business opportunities in this region together with our Muslim brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Perhaps the panel can just comment.
But if you look at the history of the investments that have been made in the ARMM, you would see that it has been increasing. And I think it's because of the peace process that has been holding on. So it is true, if we are going to resolve the issue of the Bangsamoro, we're going to resolve the issue, the economic issues that the Philippines is facing. We appreciate the comment on the importance of partnerships because we believe that with the massive devastation in the areas affected right now, not only with the Marawi crisis, but also of the previous conflicts that have been happening in Mindanao, it necessarily implies the need for everyone's support, especially also of coming from the business sector. I mean, investing there will be necessary, hopefully, as part of its rehabilitation. And we truly believe that without peace, there will be no development in the country because it does not only affect the Bangsamoro area, not only of Mindanao, but even other parts of this country.
From a transitional justice and reconciliation perspective, it is important to link socioeconomic initiatives with how communities can break from their past by looking behind, but also going forward. One of our very important recommendations is for the nation, not just the Bangsamoro, the whole Filipino society, to acknowledge and embrace the diversity that we have in the Philippines. This is important so that we actually embrace the Bangsamoro as part and parcel of the national polity and economic society.
Peace in Muslim Mindanao would also have peace dividends in terms of socio-economic development. But I would like to suggest also that there's a difference between the polarization effect of Mama Sapano and what is happening now in Marawi. In fact, I would like to see that, I think that Marawi now is bringing both Christian and Muslims together to work for peace in Mindanao. And this is being witnessed by a lot of relief missions going to Marawi by both Christian and Muslim volunteers, and the outpouring for help for Marawi from many Christian communities in Luzon, also in all over Mindanao. So this is certainly not a religious war. It is a war against terrorism. Maybe it is a war against precisely the status of instability and insecurity in Mindanao itself. And we hope that this is one way to accelerate the peace process, that the bright spot in Marawi is that Christians and Muslims are seen as working together for the sake of a common humanity.
Interesting perspectives from people who are actually affected by what's happening in Mindanao. Of course, we need to contend with a lot of misconceptions. This is not a proposal that, of course, suggests a cure-all for all the problems that is confronting Mindanao now. But of course, this is a political settlement that needs to happen. It's not a question of if, but a question of when the peace process is completed. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to the passage of the BBL and the completion of the peace process with the Bangsamoro. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian, and we'd like to thank our panelists as well for today's discussion. Over the last few decades, there have been many attempts to forge peace in Mindanao.
That's right, Lexi, but what we have before is our best chance yet. Let's put it to good use. This has been ANC Presents Bangsamoro and Beyond, a national conversation.
Yes to Bangsamoro Basic Law. Sign now.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ako po si Harkan Ibrahim. I support BBL. Ang BBL po para po sa buong Pilipinas, hindi lang po para sa Mindanao. Sukran.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Johanna Lakim. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Yes to BBL.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Long live Bangsamoro, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Jane Ibrahim. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Kami po ay lubos na sumusuporta sa Bangsamoro Basic Law from Manila. Boxing boy.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Mastura J. Abdul. I work in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I support the Bangsamoro Basic Law and yes to BBL.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Ako po ay lubos na sumusuporta sa Bangsamoro Basic Law. Allahu Akbar.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I support BBL Bangsamoro Basic Law from Saudi KSA Dammam. Shukran. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nadia Abdul Latif. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Ako po ay si Mids Bandon Landayan and I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Maraming salamat. Sukran.
Yes to Bangsamoro Basic Law. Sign now.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ako po si Harkan Ibrahim. I support BBL. Ang BBL po para po sa buong Pilipinas, hindi lang po para sa Mindanao. Sukran.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Johanna Lakim. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Yes to BBL.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Long live Bangsamoro, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Jane Ibrahim. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Kami po ay lubos na sumusuporta sa Bangsamoro Basic Law from Manila. Boxing boy.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Mastura J. Abdul. I work in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I support the Bangsamoro Basic Law and yes to BBL.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Ako po ay lubos na sumusuporta sa Bangsamoro Basic Law. Allahu Akbar.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I support BBL Bangsamoro Basic Law from Saudi KSA Dammam. Shukran. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nadia Abdulatif. I support Bangsamoro Basic Law.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Ako po ay si Mids Bandon Landayan and I support Bangsamoro Basic Law. Maraming salamat. Sukran.